Hello and welcome to the 6 Plus show, a podcast for your wargaming and 40k needs. Hobby talk, tactics, tournament reports, lore and much more. We have it all. Please welcome your host for the evening, Tom.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and shield drones to the 6 Plus show. I am your host, Tom. I'm back again. I was gone very briefly, but I'm now back. And I am joined tonight by Chris. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
And Jamie. Say hello, Jamie.
Hello, Jamie.
Wonderful. Fantastic to have you both here. And today we are talking about teams, which is very exciting. Had either of you played a teams event before this weekend gone?
No, never. I'd seen, like when England won the kind of the WTC, that sort of thing, a while ago, a few years ago, when they borrowed Nick. It was all the podcasts were talking about team events. I paid attention then, thought it sounded really fun, but no, team event virgin here.
And yourself, Jamie?
Yeah, hadn't really heard a lot about it. Obviously, it's got a lot of traction in America recently, but hadn't heard anything this side of the pond and never ventured into one myself. So no, it's a very exciting prospect.
Yeah, very much so. I also hadn't ever played a teams event before. Obviously, we've been in different teams to the international team tournament this weekend, so that's what we're going to talk you through today, and that's what we'll focus and talk a little bit about the mechanics of how teams events work, because hopefully, Chris, as captain, you're a bit closer to understanding that now. I still don't think I actually understand it. I've watched it happen. I've watched pairings happen 5 times, and I'm still like, man, I don't know.
Kind of feel like Chris just watched pairings happen 5 times as well.
Ow! That's so brutal.
Nice matchups I gave you.
Yeah.
Pairings is a bit like 40k, right? If someone's better at it than you, they just sort of make you play their game, and you just slightly cry the whole way through the process. It's uncanny. All right, okay. So we'll talk about the venue and your teams first, and then we'll get into the game. So let's chat venue. Where was this big old teams event set, Chris? And what did you think of it?
This was at Northampton's County Cricket Ground. And it was a thing of beauty. I am a big cricket fan, so it was quite nice just pulling up in the car park and you could literally just walk out onto the pitch.
Yeah.
Obviously, that would be disgraceful behaviour, but it was very scenic. The venue itself, just a giant open hall, good access to toilets, multiple car parks. Driving back Saturday evening through Northampton to the hotel was not an enjoyable experience with the world's most hidden car park. So that was an enjoyable trip around the same roundabout 3 times. But overall, I'd really highly rate it. There was no real issues with food. They supplied multiple food vans. There was a bar there.
Yeah, it was a good setup in terms of food, wasn't it? There was actually quite a lot there, and all the vans and stuff outside meant it all felt a bit less claustrophobic, so that was nice.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that venue.
Yeah, I thought it was a great venue. I hadn't really appreciated it, but obviously having each row for each game going on is really cool. Makes it feel like each round's
down the line.
Each round's concentrated to 5 games. Yeah, and you can just look down and see a whole team playing and sweating it and then worrying, which is more fun when you're walking around than when you're playing it. Which is often the way with 40k events. When you're playing and you're sucked into it, you're too busy. But when you can actually just sit and observe, it was good fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Northampton, not too far for me. Was it a long way for you guys? Or was it all right?
Like an hour 15.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's fun. It's all good.
And so obviously, you guys took our first ever 6 Plus team to the event.
We did.
Do you want to talk us through your roster? Who went and what were they playing?
Well, we had myself as El Capitan, and I was taking Custodes. Obviously, Custodes are quite strong
the
moment.
They are good.
Rumour has it they're posting some reasonable results out there. So obviously Custodes were the list we were trying to get in and make sure it was winning all the time. Then Jamie was on the Tau, so same kind of vibe. They're just bully opposition on the light board. We then we had Dave with his Grey Knights. Now Dave's still reasonably new to Grey Knights. He played a lot into Sisters of Battle, which is what Jamie was running.
Yes.
They played a lot into Grey Knights. So they were very experienced in those matchups. Not that they played it once the entire weekend, but they were well versed in it. They just didn't know much about everything else.
Oh.
Just in terms of, like experience of how to play the games. And then finally, because Lee abandoned us, we took Jack from War Masters. Shout out to War Masters.
Yes, War Masters. War Masters did very well, and that's without Jack. They still smashed it.
But Jack took Orcs, and so he knew his stuff.
This is Jack Tite, who's been pulling up trees with Orcs. So well done to Jack, and thanks for stepping in. It's a strong team. Nice balance of lists. I was also there. I was with the Twisted Dice team from my local area, which was a good time. The 18th, the 18th, of course, the 18th. And I was running the Drakari, and we had Andrew Bourbon with Tau. He's become a Tau player very recently. Of
course he has. Yeah.
Again, and John Spence on Custodes. John Spence been running Custodes for a little while, and Ace on a truly horrifying Crusher Stampede list. It was absolutely disgusting. Wonderful to look at, but disgusting to play against. And then Chris on Necrons, who was our sort of defender list, as I'm now beginning to understand the terminology a little bit. I mean, for the uneducated, you go through a pairings process in which the two teams are trying to select armies into each other, and obviously both teams are jostling to try and get favourable matchups and get their heavy hitting armies, your Tau or your Custodes at this moment in time, into something that they're just going to absolutely rinse. And you also have this complicating factor of the light, medium and heavy board, don't you? Where they sort of essentially terrain, as during the pairing process, some terrain gets taken off one table and put onto another one. So one board is particularly open, and one board is quite dense and covered in terrain. What did you guys think of pairings and heavy and light terrain as a setup? Jamie, what did you make of that?
So I think we sort of went into it having a rough idea of how we wanted to go about it. I think, but then once pairings go live, it's a different animal altogether. We had an idea of dropping Tau on light table every time, and then after the first game, decided to lose every single roll off. So we had very little. We had very little agency as to what tables we were getting. So from that point on, it was all hands on deck, trying to quickly rush around, thinking who matches into who for the 2 minutes you've got to discuss. So I think as our first team tournament, I think as much planning as we wanted to do. I think it was mostly in vain. It was sort of best to just learn on the job, really. And I think by the end of it, we had a decent idea of where we were going with the pairings. But before that, it was fun. I think the most fun was maybe the third game, where we'd got 3 games down and we had 3 teams left and they had 2, and we were baffled as to who on earth was playing who. We're like, just do what you want, mate, I think. And we ended up with a Grey Knight mirror match that we had no idea. We thought we'd already dropped the Grey Knight.
We were like, we just looked and I was like, so Dave's playing Grey Knights. How is Dave playing Grey Knights? At what point did we agree to this?
I felt like that happened a lot in our pairings, where there'd just be a couple of games you're like, that was at no stage was that in our thinking. Like, we were never like, oh, that would be good if that happened. But here we are. Okay, we'll work with it. I guess it's a chaotic process, isn't it? It's how did you find it, Chris, as the captain of the whole process? What sorts of tricks did you learn?
Yeah, so it was really interesting just to see it develop, actually. So initially it was like, right, okay, so we need to put a defender down. If we win the roll-off, what do we want? And what do we want on the board? Because you get to choose.
You get to pick.
So we were like, right, well, the obvious thing is Tau on a light board. So that was our game plan. And you're like, right, well, if we lose the roll-off, then that means we can pick the heavy board. So who do we want to put on the heavy board? And that was kind of just our initial thinking. That was our game plan going in. We would just try and cover those 2 things. Yeah. The problem was that when you started to go, right, well, if we win the roll-off, we put this down, then they'll put this down. And what would they put against us? And trying to do that in your head mentally.
You're second guessing, right?
Trying to spread. It's just insane. It's so complicated to try and do. And for me, I think it was the first day, basically. What happened was we would have our defender, they would put their 2 attackers into our defender and vice versa. Then and that would all be fine. Then we get to the next stage, I'd be like, so who have I got left? And Right, we'll put this defender. Right, so who are our two attackers? We only had two attackers left because your second defender is obviously leaving just those final two attackers. But it just kept confusing me. And I was just writing it down on bits of paper. And it just wasn't working. So what we did was I just ripped up bits of paper and we put those down. And like some teams put the army list down. Some people put models down.
Yeah, some people had like custom cards and stuff. There's all sorts.
And just having that, just knowing what was left in your hand was so invaluable. So
I think that's massively important. Have a sort of physical track of what you put in.
So if you guys, if anyone listening goes to Coventry in April, just try and have your armies just written on a bit of paper at the bare minimum, just so you can kind of have them out. It made a big difference, and by the end, I think we were making progress in terms of how we thought about it. When we get to talk about game 3, I'll talk about that because we got it hideously wrong. And kind of as such, we actually learned quite a lot. But no, nice. It was an enjoyable experience. Like once I got my head around the basics of how it worked. And you can definitely see like the top tier, they will know what the best matchups are they're trying to get. But also, perhaps more importantly, because all the best teams know the best matchups, they can kind of anticipate what's going to go next and what their opponent. So when you're at that stage where you're like, right, we've got 3 armies left, one of them's going to be a defender, and then the 2 will be the attacker that their defender goes into. Ideally you want to be able to predict what their defender is going to be. And that actually hurt us in the final game because we guessed wrong. And I think at the highest level, you're able to know that because you're all so secure in what the different key matchups are. You know what your opponent's going to try. And then it becomes a bit of cat and mouse and out tactically thinking each other. Where in our case, it's just blind luck. Because we don't really know. So I think that's a really exciting thing, that the more you understand the game, the more you understand the matchups. I think that's something which will definitely be exciting to develop and add to.
Do you want for the layman and also for the lowman, because I don't fully understand this, to explain what attackers and defenders are in this situation? What makes an attacker? What makes a defender?
Yeah, so you roll a dice. Whoever wins it kind of gets the priority, and then both teams put forward one defender. Okay, so whoever's got priority gets the first and get choice of terrain though. In response. So then you both unveil your defenders.
You show the army you've put in.
So we'll be like, oh, right, okay, so we've put forward Tau and you've put forward Orcs or whatever. Then we pick 2 armies as our attackers to go up against their defender.
There's options for it to fight.
Same. And then we reveal those at the same time. And then basically, as a defender, you get to pick. So when Jamie was our defender, we'd say, right, here are the 2 armies they've put forward as attackers. What one do you want? They're making that same choice. They make that choice, and now you've got two of your matchups out of your 5 solved.
And once they're done, they're done. They're off. They're out of the pool.
They're off. And then you have 3 armies left, each person, so each team puts forward their next defender.
And you work through it again.
Exactly. And that's exactly it. Obviously, stuff like WTC is like 8 teams. And so that's far more complicated and rigorous. But.
So the selection of defenders is the real magic, isn't it? Because that's where the choices that people can't get around so easily are. Because
if you put yourself
whatever they put back, then the other team are in control of how they match into it and what.
When you put forward your 2 attackers, you're like, well, they're just going to pick one.
But they'll take the one they like the most.
Exactly. When you're putting forward a defender, you're like, well, we're going to get to choose.
Exactly.
And so that you have to factor that in both as the attackers and the defenders. So it's a very cool mini game.
And it seemed from my observations, you may feel the same. It produced 2 kinds of games across the event. It produced games where something drastically more powerful than something else was trying to stomp that thing, and that thing was trying to get as many points as it could as it got stomped. And it also produced occasional mirrors and sort of equal matchups where it could really swing either way, and the whole balance of the tie was very much in that as well. The balance of the tie seemed to be in those close games, but also in the score differentials in the other games. And, one team might have a couple of great games, great matchups, but if they don't smash them as well as the other team do, then they can slip to a defeat on total score, because that's what decides the overall result, isn't it? Total score.
And that's exactly it, because we had, 3 games that went 3-2 either way.
Yeah.
And one was decided by 12 points, one was decided by 17, and one was decided by 100.
Oof, yeah.
And like they're so different. That's the other thing. If you're within 10, it's a draw.
Yeah.
So if the teams are and you got 10 extra points if you won your match. So if you won 87-40, you actually won 97-40. So it's best of 550.
Yeah. So it's a very different animal, isn't it? Very strange, quite unusual. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a huge fan of the sort of. It feels like it creates lots of games that are so horrifically one-sided just because of how Teams is intended to function, and that's I guess the bit of me that likes events for getting to gradually closer and closer games. This doesn't produce that.
No,
in
not
way. But obviously there were players there and teams there who it seemed like they could just rinse everyone no matter what the pairings were. Right?
Yeah.
You had some teams who just went through whatever they were put in on whatever combination. So obviously there's layers to that. Okay, fantastic. Well, we know what your teams are. We have a vague sense of how pairings works now. So let's talk through your round one, and then I'll tell you a little bit about mine. So for you guys, you're going into round one. What team do you come up against? What are you?
We were against the Checked Mates.
The Checked Mates.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they all were mates who wore checked shirts.
Oh, that's nice. That's a nice touch. So
it was charming, yes.
Me in the 2000s, the earlier 2000s.
Yeah.
Most of my youth and uni years. Nice, I like it.
They were notable because they had Eddie Eccles playing for them.
Okay.
Warhammer preview fame.
Oh, exciting. Okay.
Yeah. So our game plan going into this game. So their lists were they had Crusher, they had Tau, they had Sisters, they had Orcs, and they had Drukhari.
Good, strong selection.
Yep, good selection of codexes, all pretty strong lists. So going in, we were like, right, we win the roll off Tau on a light board. That's how we should play.
Just straight down with the Tau.
Yeah.
I think part of that was also just to stop their Tau getting the light board. I think that was the mentality. Yeah. It's like, well, we don't want to get blown away by their Tau. We'll drop Tau on a light board. Just
that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, because that Tau's the only really gunny one that they have in their selection, isn't it? So, and obviously, if you put the Tau down, then you're forcing you're going to get to choose your sort of morsel from whatever they put forward, aren't you? Nice. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't mentioned it. Just so, for example, when you chose light boards, you would take 2 of the middle L's.
Yeah, you're taking terrain out of the center, so there's just nothing.
And then you'd go and put it on the heavy board.
Yeah.
So essentially, the whole middle of the board is going to be wide open. It's kind of how it generally works.
Which is crazy.
Absolutely terrifying.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah.
So after the dust settled with our pairings, we had Tau on the light board, our Tau into their Crusher Stampede. We had our Orcs into their Tau on a medium board. We had our Custodes into their Sisters on a medium board. We had our Sisters into their Orcs. And then we had our Grey Knights into their Drukhari on a heavy board.
Nice.
So I guess we were like, well, Jamie might be able to blow away the Crusher Stampede, and there's nowhere for the big monsters to hide. Jack said with his Orcs, he felt that this was the only mission he could really play into Tau because he could just play the mission really well.
Yeah.
And maybe sneak a win, but he'll score highly. Jamie was happy taking on Orcs. He didn't really have any idea what they would do with his Sisters, but he was like, yeah, it'll be fine, guys. And Dave,
in teams, you need someone like that because there's always going to be a couple of pairings that you're just like, right, okay, well, someone needs to go and get on with this.
Yeah, exactly. And then Dave went into Drukhari good stuff, and he was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I was kind of the last one left over, me into the Sisters. So in terms of the matches, I'll just very quickly talk through mine.
Oh, sure.
It was the one where Abandoned Sanctuary, we can't move pre-game into the board. His list was very kind of generic. It had Sacrosanct, it had some Repentia, it had Celestine, Retributors, Dominions, all the standard stuff you'd expect from Sisters. It probably wasn't fully optimized and tailored. And I went first, moved into the middle of the board, fired all my salvos, did nothing. He then moved in a little bit closer towards me, shot a lot and did nothing. And then I smashed into him and killed lots.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. It was after that first turn, I was like, well, it's now just about me trying to optimize my score as best as possible because I know he can't really hurt me. And that's basically what happened. There's one interesting moment where his Repentia came out to play and I charged my 2 bikes in and I knew he could fight when he died. I was like, it will be fine. Turn off re-rolls. Repentia don't do anything, hitting on 4s. So he's got like 5 Repentia and literally pretty much everything hit. I was like, oh no. And then pretty much everything wounded. And then I failed pretty much every save. And all of a sudden, all my bikes died and it cost me Stranglehold. I was like,
no.
I had to CP re-roll that, but I was okay. I made the 4 up. It was a little thing. But it was, in general, I was never particularly worried. In terms of the other games, Dave played a great game into Drakari, and I believe it came down to like the fight right at the end. The Drakari player failed a 5-inch charge
with a reroll. Yeah,
which was like a 14-point swing.
Yeah, it's unlucky. That's great. Grey Knights Drakari is a real dance of a game. Well done, Dave. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. Grey Knight player has to do everything right, but if they do everything right, they can defang them and get it done.
Yeah, sounded like Dave played really well.
Yeah, nice one.
Jamie East got absolutely battered by all. He scored 38 points. And
what sort of orcs was it? Was it Speedwar or Goths? Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah,
I looked across, I was like, that's quite a lot of stuff. And Jamie was like, no, I've got that flake, mate. I'm gonna take all them are gonna die this turn. And then I looked back later, I was like, they didn't all die, did they, Jamie? It's not gone well. And then Jack managed to get an early lead, and then by the end of the game had pretty much nothing left, but he did manage to sneak the win.
Sensational.
Yeah, it was a very impressive win from him. And that's Jamie, do you want to quickly mention your game?
Yeah, Jamie, how was Tau?
Yeah, not overwhelming. So we had the light board. He got first turn and essentially moved every big bug under the sun straight at me. Double moving. I managed to slow the charge on the big bitey bug. No idea what it's called. The one at the Codex that everyone thinks is rubbish. Is it
Harrispex?
That's the one.
Yeah,
Harrispex. He had 2 of those, which was quite strange to see. But
they're low key, quite scary now. Yeah.
With
Crusher,
D3 attacks per attack or something.
Yeah, it's quite freaky. Ace round 1 did bits. Yeah.
So he went to charge my battle suits. 1 CP -2 from his charge. Managed to hold him off. So then come to my turn and I threw a fully buffed squad of broadsides into a barbed hero jewel and done 4 damage with all the buffs, full rerolls from Shadow Sun. That was where it started going a bit downhill for me. It took the entire rest of my army to take out the Harrispex that was in my lines. And then obviously after that he had a Hive Tyrant, another Harrispex, Swarm Lord, and the Barbed Hero Duel just firing away at will, just whittling me down. It was just a game that sort of dice abandoned me in key moments like that. That Hero Duel knocking 4 wounds off it when, hoping for so much more. So I managed to kill quite a bit, but just not enough before they got into my lines and
overwhelmed,
slowly wore me down. I think in hindsight, accepting the Crusher on a light board was just, I think, overall the wrong play. No room for move blocking there when there's no terrain
because I guess that actually negates
board.
One of their weak spots, doesn't it?
Yeah, so they were just able to literally throw everything at me and just overwhelm my firepower. So
that's interesting.
Lessons learned.
Interesting. Yeah, no, exactly. So, and that's quite well played by them, putting something that was actually going to enjoy that match or enjoy that terrain situation better than some would.
Very much a stat check, really. If I could take them out turn one, I'd have been okay.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Because I think if you drop 2 monsters turn one, that's a slightly different game, because Crusher doesn't like losing a couple of monsters a turn. It can deal with losing one a turn.
Yeah, I think I sort of started to fight back towards the end. I think in the end he only had a Trigon and a Carnifex left.
Not too bad.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of times my Crisis Squad full of airburst shot into Warriors, left 1-on-1 wound. So they kept the strangle there. And another time shot into the other squad and left 1-on-2 wounds. And it's just like another day they'd have dropped those last wounds. And it's
so fine margins.
Yeah, they're quite big swings when you're looking at primaries and stranglehold. So
definitely,
but no, it was an interesting game, and just a couple of small rolls, and it would have been a different game. So.
And it's worth saying you're relatively new with Tau as well, right? This is an army you've been painting up, and it's just arrived at being ready to go.
Yes, I probably only had sort of 5 practice games with it, so very much
excellent.
work in progress.
And so with those results across the board, where did the final differential land? How'd it go?
Finished 3-2, and we won by 17 points.
Oh, wow. Squeaky.
But we got the win. We were off to a good start.
Very nice. Very nice. So over in the Twisted Dice corner, we were drawn with the Dutch internationals that had come to visit round 1, which we were super excited about, because obviously, you're hoping when you go to something like this, you'll play one of the fancy pants teams. And these lads, led by Dick van der Hurst, who plays in the UK a lot and is a fantastic Necrons player, had come over. Ace, I think, had done some good groundwork getting drunk with them in the hotel the night before, so they'd all sort of chatted and got to know. So we got on very well, and we hit it off. And indeed, we had dinner with them on the Saturday night. So we did. It was a nice sociable occasion, and this was one of those ones where I think that roll off and those early pairings was huge, because we put me up to begin with, I think, defending, and they gave us a choice, and one of the choices was Tau, and then we got Tau onto heavy board. I can't remember, I'm not an expert in pairing, so I can't remember exactly how this permutation occurs, but we managed to have a situation where I was playing into Tau.
If you put yourself as first defender, you'd have then been able to choose the board, so you could put yourself on.
So we had his Tau, a nice chap, Dino's Tau on a heavy board, and then we managed to match it up so that we had a couple of quite favourable matchups. We had Ace's Crusher into the Necrons. We had Andrew's Tau were also playing into Drakari. The 2 Custodes players were both chopping up something relatively straightforward for them to chop up. What's the spice? There was one other one. I think that's I think that is it. And so this again was incredibly close. I played into the Tau and I went first, and in this mission this was the one where you could get 5 for holding the middle one at the end. And I think that hurt me a bit, because he was able to get a 5-point swing at the death, which took him to the win. But I was able to play a really, really tight, close game, and we both took to the last, and we both killed 2 of our to the last. So it was really, really like nail biting and brutal, but keeping the score differential down really low helped overall. And then our Tau beat their Drakari by a little bit more. Our Custodes won by a lot. Ace beat the Necrons by a fair bit, and then our Necrons lost to Custodes, but again lost very valiantly. So it was another very tight result. I think there was about 20, 21, 22 points in it tops, but we were able to, I think, by getting a couple of decent pairings, grind that one out. And the Dutch went on to win all their remaining games, so we were delighted to have.
They beat Vanguard Tactics.
They did beat Vanguard Tactics, yeah. So the Dutch did very well. So shout out to the Dutch team. You were all excellent. It was a very, very enjoyable game. Dino was a good opponent, and we were very chuffed to have managed to get away with that one.
No, it's a great win.
So round 2, what were you drawn into? You've got a win now. You're up in the Sharks. What happened?
The Sharks, we went into Let's Get Fact.
Okay, nice. I like it.
Classy. So this was an interesting one. So these guys, I think, had just kind of all from the Oxford area, and they just kind of, someone had bought the ticket and then said, "Hey guys in Oxford, who wants to play on my team?"
Oh, nice.
As far as I could work out. So Pairings process was the one where we ended up with grey knights into grey knights because I just got really complicated. And then like, yeah, this is why we have bits of paper. It just makes everything so much easier. I was like, okay, all right, fair enough. So they won the roll off. So they put Tau on the light board, and we put down Custodes, and I think might put down Tau. And the Tau player went, "It's fine, I'll take this bullet for the team." I'm like, what? How is Tau on a light board? You got every chance of beating Custodes. It was because the Tau player had just played Custodes on a light board and got smashed. Which is a bit weird. I was like, that's interesting. Anyway, the matchups we had, so we had Custodes versus Tau on the light board. We then had Jamie's Tau into Genestealer Cult, which we really didn't know how that would go.
That is interesting. I'll watch that one with interest.
Yeah, we had our sisters on the heavy board into their 1,000 Suns, which we felt reasonably okay with. We had our Orcs into their Drakari, which Jack said was a reasonably close matchup. And then, as I said, Grey Knights, which we didn't really want because Dave's not particularly experienced with Grey Knights, and if his opponent was, then it could be a bit of a tricky one. Jamie, do you want to talk through or mention your really fun game against GSC?
Yeah, Genestealer Cults. How did that go?
Yes. Well, I don't think I've even seen a battle report of GSC. Obviously hear people talk of them. Yeah, yes. But, you could sort of have a rough idea of what they can do. But, yeah, never played them, so it's a bit of an eye-opener. The game dragged on immensely. His second deployment phase was probably half an hour after my first movement phase. It was a very slow moving game. I don't think I've ever had a game finish at the death. I think I'm a very fast player, but that game just seemed to drag on one way or another. Got to halfway through, so I went first. Halfway through my shooting phase on turn 4, the guy's like, "We've got 3 minutes, we need to stop now." Stopped me off halfway through my shooting phase on turn 4.
Okay.
Says, "I want the rest of the time to finish my turn." Finished his turn. I was like, I'm not going to fall out every game of Warhammer, so that's fine. Finished his turn 4, held objectives with guys that I was lining up to shoot. And the game finished there with a loss. I think it helped me, immensely learning how Genestealer Cults play. Knowing that if I was to play against them in a tournament again, I think a chess clock is mandatory.
100%.
Just because there's just so much stuff to do. Second deployment phase, I mean, he had 7-8 units in reserve. Each time he wanted to bring them in, obviously he wants to bring them in within 8 and maximise those charges. So there was a lot of measuring and walking around the table numerous times, just because the way the tables are set up, obviously just every time he wants to walk around the table, that's a sort of 30 metres all the way around. So it was just all very time consuming, and just the way it goes. Between us, we should have had a better idea on the clock and maybe rushed it along turn 2 and 3, but alas, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Well, it sounds like you've taken that in a very sporting and mature
I've
fashion.
had a week to,
because I certainly think that sounds like someone needs to be smashed against the wall, and it's not you. That's very cheeky to be shutting you off in your.
I just can't believe it. Like,
the stone's on him.
There is zero situation where any judge goes,
no, exactly.
You should stop mid shooting.
Yeah. So you stop your turn, and we'll just play a chunk of yours.
Just play bits of each other's turns, shall we?
But you're right.
He can have his movement, but I won't have my shooting.
You're right that it's not. It's never worth coming to blows over a game of Warhammer, and there are some people out there who just want to pull this stuff, and I guess you just you let them have it.
I was already pretty grumpy. I mean, I think he has 7 or 8 reserves, and he made every single charge 8-inch charge with no rerolls, every single one. I was like, come on, I just want to fail one and leave something in the open for me to shoot.
This is definitely my recurring concern with Genestealer Cults, is that they are a time and labour intensive army. And I suspect games running close and running to time, it will happen a lot at events with GSC, just because they are fiddly, and it's not territory I like being in at all. I prefer prefer a quick, snappy game. So it's an interesting one to watch. But I'm glad you feel like there were useful experiences in there for you anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
And Chris, how did you get on?
I was into Tau, and it's a diagonal deployment, and it's data scry, whatever it is, salvage. So there's 4 across the middle diagonally, and the entire middle of the board is open. There is nothing there. And there's a Custodes player staring out into the great abyss of death. He had a crisis bomb, he had 3 broadsides. Other than that, it wasn't, don't get me wrong, it was an absolutely horrendous list. He also wasn't a super experienced player by any stretch of the imagination. So I was like, maybe I've got a chance. I kind of just deployed and just hid and was like, well, what's going to happen is I'm probably just going to have to run straight down the middle of the board and see how that goes. So I went second, and he was quite aggressive. He had some a Crutox Hound on one side, he had some Crut on the other flank, and he put his 2 Remora drones near me. And he had his broadsides, and he pushed them into cover up against a ruin so we could see through. And a lot of the stuff could see my just see 3 bikes just from around the corner. I was like, this could be a bit of a problem. It's fine. I'll turn off rerolls. All will be well in the world. So he had 6 shots and 5 hits, and then 5 wounded. And I'm thinking, 5 rail rifle, that's going to really, really hurt. And I then proceeded to make 4 out of the 5 4-up invulnerables, re-rolled the 5th one, saved it. We then made, obviously for the 5 mortal wounds, I saved 4 of the 5 of those on 4-up for no pains.
Filthy.
And I took 1 wound from all of that. And I was like, I think I might be all right now.
When you play the game of 4s, you win or you die.
Exactly. So it was then a beautiful sight for my turn 1, because I just launched everything into the middle of the board. All spread out. But because he pushed his broadsides forward, I actually now had like a 4-inch charge into his broadsides.
Ouch.
And he only had like 3 drones there, and I very quickly shot the drones away and killed 2 broadsides with my salvos. It turned my charge into like a 5-inch charge. He did the -2 to charge strap.
Yeah.
And both my shield captain and my bikes did fail.
Wow.
That was kind of it. Signs were him being experienced. He dropped his crisis bomb down, full rerolls. He was like, I'm going to spend 3 CP to give them all full rerolls. I mean, I guess you'll turn it off, but I might as well.
I love people that do that.
I'm like, okay, it's fine. He could sure bead onto 2 units. So
and he was like, that'll cost you 3, right? Because that's such a powerful tool. That surely it'll cost him at least 3 to switch my rerolls.
At least he'll be splitting his fire into the 2 bike units. No. He just went everything into that 1 unit, which will be transhumaned. And so, I mean, turn 3, his final deep strikes went into his very own corner of his deployment zone, because he was trying desperately to stop me from scoring any points.
Yeah.
But no, it was I think it finished something like 97-24.
Ouch.
It was quite a brutal game.
It feels like if Custodes have a good day on the saves, that's where things can end up at the moment.
Have enough time to get in.
And with Tau, they need that phase to go well, don't they? Otherwise, they are in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of the other matchups, so Grey Knights into Grey Knights, Dave lost. He said like the other guy was just a better Grey Knight player than him. Jack beat the Drukhari. Nice. And then Jamie got his first ever win with Sisters of Battle into Thousand Suns.
Sweet.
I think he enjoyed the denies and the huge amount of cover there.
Yes. Heavy board and lots of places for ladies to pop out and do violence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we won 3-2, and overall we won by 100 points.
Oh, hefty. A hefty win.
A hefty win. So that pushed us up to table 6 for the next game.
Very, very good. Very nicely done.
How did you get on?
So we were drawn into a team that you will yourselves know called B Team, as in the Bastards. And they were led by one Kyle Grundy, who is, for those in the know, quite a good Tau player, who was going like 4 in one with Tau before their new book, so was already absolutely freaking terrifying, and is now piloting fully amped up to the walls Tau. It also boasted Henry Byrne, who's been doing bits in the UK with Thousand Suns and a range of other armies, and Marcus Hinson, who informed me after my castration that he was the England player for Knights quite a lot of the time. So some big names. And we definitely thought, looking at the list, that we were in trouble. And I think this was one where we got done on the pairings because we were desperate to avoid mirror matches. We didn't want to waste Andrew Bourbon's Tau on Kyle because we knew Kyle knew Tau better than Andrew. And Andrew plays against Kyle all the time, so I was keen to avoid that. So however it played out, we got a whole suite of pairings that weren't ideal for us. I think Ace got Deathwatch for Crusher, which was nice. So the Crusher just demolished some Deathwatch, which was all well and good. And Ace had a great weekend. Ace had a great time. Ace seemed to manage to get a pairing in which he could just utterly destroy someone every single round.
Basically Jack for us.
But we had a Custodes mirror, John Spencer to Gareth Chambers. I think it was a Custodes mirror. Let me just double check it was Custodes. And we also had, it was. And we had Tau mirror. We had Necrons into Thousand Suns, which was sort of in the balance, and me on a light board into Imperial Knights, which was interesting. So the Drakari I was running, like a lot of Drakari armies, like cover, like being able to hide behind something on their way to stab you in the neck. And I didn't have that option. And then Marcus was a very assertive player, very strong player. You can tell he's played a lot of teams and played a lot of games and won a lot of games, and he knows what he needs to do to win games. And he did what he needed to do to win games. And I got absolutely rinsed. So well done, Marcus. And in our other matchups, Kyle, the big one was Kyle absolutely shellacked Andrew in the mirror. I don't know if that's a first turn game or not. Andrew obviously is a cracking player and he rarely loses quite as severely as he did in this game, but I think just with the weight of fire and just the one Tau army getting to start pulling the other one apart before the other one to get on the board and get movement, that made it too much for him to recover. And between me losing heavily and Andrew losing heavily, that made it beyond us to recover. The interesting thing was that John Spence's Custodes won his mirror, and John Spence's Custodes won every mirror against Custodes they went into, which is kind of intriguing. And so he was running Emperor's Chosen, but he was much more infantry heavy, much more of the shield foot infantry.
He's the way forward, in my opinion.
Very grindy, isn't it? Very grindy in the mirror. And he edged out and sort of did what Custodes do to the Custodes in each game. So he was holding out his end, Ace was holding out his end, but the rest of us unfortunately ground to a defeat. So we were defeated quite. It wasn't too much in it, maybe 50, 60 points, but we were done by our two heavy defeats. And I do hate Knights. And I think my captain misunderstood me. They were like, "How's you into Knights?" And I said, "Well, it goes one of two ways." I don't think they quite understood what I meant by that. Because one of those ways is I somehow get through having killed one knight, and the other way is I don't kill the knights and I get pushed off the board. But there we are. So that was our round 2. So round 3, final round of the day. What did you guys have?
Well, we're up with the big boys, and we now get to play your Conquerors.
Oh no! So you play the B team as in Bastards?
As in the Bastards.
Okay.
And yeah, I think this is an interesting one just in terms of the pairing process. So they won the roll-off, and they put down Knights. So we're like, right, Knights on a light board. Who on earth has a game into that?
So that was exactly the same thing that happened in ours.
So we're like, right, we don't want to waste the Custodes. We don't want to waste the Tau. Because what if we go second? Sisters, Grey Knights get shot off the board. Jax knows his matchups and can identify some better ones. So we're like, what do we do? So we threw Dave under the bus. Here's what we did. We gave them Sisters and Grey Knights, I think, and went, pick one. And they picked Dave. Now, after the game, I spoke to Marcus, and he said you should never have done that because the Grey Knights have a good match into the Thousand Suns. They have obviously a match into the Death Watch. They have a match into Tau because of just all the mortal wounds
and the movement. Yeah.
And it was just kind of actually the Grey Knights were reasonable in this matchup, and we just threw them away. And I was like, yeah, and it was that extra step of understanding the future pairings and that sort of thing, which we weren't quite there for yet. And he said we should have either put down Custodes, although it's not ideal, or maybe Tau and just hope to go first, because it could work out that way. So instead, what happened was Tau. So what happened was their Knights on a light board into our Grey Knights, which is an absolute annihilation. Dave, I mean, I like to say Dave didn't moan about it much, but that would be a complete lie.
I don't get like particularly salty in 40k games very often, but I was very close to having at my team for being put on the light board against Knights. So I know how David feels. It was definitely the closest to genuinely ticked off about it that I got all weekend. It was like, oh, thanks a bunch.
We then thought, you know what, Tau into Thousand Sons, that'll be fine. We hadn't actually looked at the Thousand Sons list.
No.
We didn't think it was fine, just to clarify. I wasn't part of the pairings process. So
you wash your hands of this.
I was told I was having Thousand Sons.
And that game went well, didn't it, Jamie?
Yep, brilliantly.
Yeah.
So I was 0-2 for the day, so I was hoping for some good news at the end of the day. So I turned up to the table against Henry, who came 11th at Beachhead Brawl with Tau, so he knows the Tau fairly well.
And if you look at his ITC results, it's all single digits. It's literally there's no double digits. He's very good.
So he's like, I'm surprised they put you up against me. He said this list is purposely designed to defeat Tau. I was like, great, this is going well. Yeah. So we roll off. He gets first turn and drops one of his 10-man bricks of Terminators in front of my lines, buffs them to high heaven, kills 2 broadsides, and now I'm left with 1 hammerhead, 1 broadside, and everything else really 1 damage. And he's like, oh, you're 1 damage, that's great, I get +1 save against that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
And I just continued to bounce off him with his 25 Terminators, of which I killed maybe 15, but he's bringing 2 back a turn, and one of his squads auto heals up at the start of the turn. So I just completely bounced off him, which was great fun.
That's tough.
Thanks for throwing me
something
under the bus
I think
there,
we should all start telling our opponents that our list is purposely designed to beat theirs at the start of the game. I think that's a good psychological in. I'm going to start doing that. Oh yeah, my list is.
You do realise that my list
designed to beat this.
That's what Chris's list does. It's like this list is purposely designed to beat all others. You know that.
Yeah.
If only, because I got matched.
Oh, good segue.
I got matched into Kyle's Tau.
After you'd just beaten Tau, so you were confident in this.
I'm aware that the calibre of play is probably slightly different.
Yeah, a little bit different.
He has the broadsides, he's got the bomb. He's got a very nice far sight enclave list. We are playing on
Devilfish as well, though, right? He's more of a mobility player than some of the Tau lists.
Yeah,
which actually is something you yourself are doing a bit, Jamie, isn't it? You've got some mobility and some.
Yeah, so my list is very similar. Although I was running Tau Sept as opposed to Farsight Enclaves.
I don't know how many others are doing Farsight Enclaves at the moment, but Kyle
just the big man Siegler himself. I think
just the big man Siegler himself and Kyle. So they know something.
Yeah. They do know something. Yeah,
perhaps they know what they're doing.
We were playing a mission literally the day before Jamie and I had played as a warm-up game, and I'd managed to sneak that win after just about killing enough stuff to be able to hold on to the primary and put away that way. So I was like, I'll just deploy exactly the same way, and it all happened pretty much the same. So first turn, he decided to be really aggressive, and he basically deep struck down the crisis bomb behind me, and I was like, right, well, I don't really know what to do here. Do I redeploy my bikes out of line of sight or not? If I redeploy them out of line of sight, I've then got 2 bike units hidden but not able to affect the game for ages. I know that I need to come to him and get in his line.
You don't have ages in the Tau game.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I'll leave them here and I'll just put all the buffs on them and hopefully they won't die, and then I can at least start getting into stuff next turn. what happened was he absolutely annihilated those 3 bikes. He nearly killed a dreadnought, and then down on the other flank, because we're like corner deployments, like squares. I had 3 Sagittarium hidden away, ready to run onto an objective, and he brought like breaches in a hammerhead, a devilfish over, and just wiped them out. Yeah. And I'm like, what direction do I go? Because on one side in the no man's land objective, I've got crisis bomb, like commander, stealth suits, 10 breaches, devilfish. So that's all one objective. Then there's the other objective, which I can't really get to, it's slightly too far away, is Crutox hounds, breaches, and devilfish, and that's where all the broadside and bodyguard crisis are ready to blow up anything. I don't really know what to do here. I would like to say at this point, we've probably been playing for about an hour and a half.
You played just his first turn.
We played just his first turn in an hour and a half.
Yikes.
He's known as a thorough player. Apparently, he once played a 9-hour TTS game. But yeah, it's tough. It's like he won we rolled off for like the redeploys and stuff, and he just sat down and just looked at the board for like 5 minutes. Then he did all his like pre-game moves and stuff. And then he probably, after like 15, 20 minutes, we went into his actual turn. It was just a bit, I was just sat there, and when you sat there just twiddling your thumbs, waiting for all the pain to happen. And I fully understand the process. Like he clearly just went, right, I'm going to plan this turn out thoroughly, and then I'm going to blow away my opponent.
Yeah.
But it was just a bit frustrating just having to sit there and, like, in my turn, I didn't really there wasn't much I could do. It feels like such a long game. We basically played 2 turns of this game. Because on my turn, I went down to one side with my shield captain and 3 bikes, killed the breaches, devilfish exploded, did 6 mortal wounds to my bike captain. On the other flank, went in, killed the devilfish, that also exploded, did 6 mortal wounds to some of my stuff, including my nearly dead dreadnought. I failed a 3-inch charge, having already re-rolled a previous charge. The dice were just a bit not ideal, because that was like 3 bites and extra movement and stuff, which they wanted. But after that, after my turn, been playing for... after my first turn, he went, how long's left? And I went, we've only got 55 minutes left. And he was like, oh, do you want to just talk it through? It's obviously quite hard to talk through for the next 4 turns. But
that's a lot of turns to talk through, yeah.
But the reality was, all the other games had already finished.
Yeah.
Jack had beaten Deathwatch very comprehensively. Jamie into Custodes had messaged us on the group chat to be like, I think I've won this, guys. I've just killed 2 of his 2 like really hard to kill shield captains, and then still got smashed. And everyone was just watching our game, and I was just like, yeah, fine. Well, we'll just talk through this bit. And we kind of worked out that I would just hold the middle, because he'd be shooting around the flanks and holding the side objectives, and it would end like 97-66 or something like that.
Yeah, thereabouts.
It just didn't feel like I got proper game of Warhammer out of it, really. If I'd gone first, I would have been able to get across to the objectives. I would have been in cover. I would have been hidden. He would have really struggled to see me. And then I've got more of a dancing platform off next turn.
Sure.
And I feel like it's probably a bit more of a game.
Yeah.
But that was just a case in point of, this is the Alpha Strike, I'm going to take you apart. And there was no way I could shield, because they can first turn deep strike with these stealth suits.
Yeah.
And it was just very brutal. So
yeah, that interesting was something that definitely kept me big time in the Tau game in round 1, was because he couldn't have the stealth suits on the board further up because of
it makes such a
which meant I couldn't get Alfred. I think probably my game with Dino is much harder without that. Yeah.
So we lost 1-4, and we lost by 147 points.
Yeah. So they're good. The B teamers in the bastards, so there's no shame in that.
Yeah, exactly.
What did we do? So we hit a team called Dangard Tactics.
Oh yeah.
Who were absolutely brilliant to play. They, I think, had been drinking for several hours. They were very much there to have a good time, not a long time. And they were very fun, very nice guys. They were swearing at us aggressively all the way through the pairings in a sort of very silly, very funny way. Like, I don't want to play that. You go and play that. I don't want to play that. It was very entertaining lads. This was one of those ones, you have these early on in events where there's just a drastic clash and gap between the expectations and ambitions of the two teams, right? They're there to have a good time, and they brought some armies to do that, and we're trying to take it quite seriously. So we've got much more optimized and much more finely tuned and much more of the meta army. So it was a hard matchup for them. I had a wonderful and very silly game against Nick, I believe his name was. And Nick had beautifully converted Sisters of Battle, who were all converted with like Grave Lords and undead models. So all the sisters were all dead. They were like skeletons and ghouls, and they had like the decaying shields and stuff on the sacrosancts. Beautiful green armor as well. And Morven Val, there's no like face in the thing, and Celestine's a big skeleton, and so it was really cool. I've never seen that done, and it was the most beautiful army I played all weekend. But Nick, bless him, I think had a lot of people play Drukhari at the moment, and it's the psychological trauma from the last year is still quite in their minds. And I think Nick played more tentatively than he needed to, and certainly with Drukhari, it's sort of like weeding. You've got to be very sort of just gay and just pull stuff out and sort it out, and don't let them play the way that they want to play. So I was able to kind of control the game and sort of come to my what was that, my first win of the day. Game 3. Goodness. So we won that one handsomely, but they were lovely guys and our best sports for the weekend. So shout out to Nick. That was a very, very good time. So that was the end of day 1. Thankfully, we didn't have to play a 4th game, because this was a sensibly sized 5-game event. No madness, specifically for weird space points online. So that was good. We had a curry with the Dutch out and about, which was good fun as well. Chatted Drukhari with their Drukhari players, so that was a good time. Did you guys find any sensible sort of short and relaxing and restful late night and evening entertainment before getting a sensible night's sleep and drinking some water?
I mean, if by that do you mean we went out drinking far too much and got back at 4 a.m, then yeah, that is exactly what happened.
Jamie, did you have any part in this nonsense, or did you get out there?
I had a part in having a nice civilized meal with the War Masters, and then heading off back to my room to watch Match of the Day.
Oh, champion. Very wise. Very wise.
Yeah, definitely the right call. So, yeah, we got back at 4. Shout out to Jack, who walked with us back to our hotel. And then we're like, right, do you want us to wait for you? We're like, no, I'll be fine. I'm like, okay, fine. Anyway, it turns out he ordered a taxi, or went to order a taxi, and then his phone died.
Oh, no.
And so he's stuck in Northampton. No idea where his hotel is. He starts trying to walk back there and gets lost, and then manages to find where we ate, and then tries to retrace the steps of the taxi. Gets in at 5:30.
That is horrific. I saw you guys and Jack the day after. I would never have guessed that Jack had been through as horrific an experience.
Yeah, no, he got like 2 hours sleep.
He seemed very calm. Is he 20? Is he?
He's only 20.
Okay. Well, you can walk those off at that point. I'd have died, I think, at this point.
We weren't. I think when we woke up in the morning, like Dave was vomiting in the shower. So,
nice. That's good.
No, it was a very good fun night. We haven't had one for a while, but it was just it was not the ideal prep for the day's Sunday festivities.
So what awaited you as you sort of shook off the booze? What did you come up against?
Strange enough, considering we went to a gay club on the night out, this team were called Titan Uranus.
Nice.
Okay, so they're quite a serious-looking bunch. I was like, did you guys go out last night?
Extremely serious, yeah.
I was like, did you guys go out last night? No. So it's not the hangovers then. Okay. So, we lost the roll-off again, and they put down knights. And we're like, oh, knights on a light board. Dave? But we're like, no, we won't do this to Dave again. So we went, why not? Let's do what Marcus said. Let's put down Tau. They chose that as the heavy board.
Okay.
Because I presume they're thinking Tau need to be able to see you to shoot.
Yeah,
Now,
that's not the case anymore, is it?
It's not
sadly?
really the case because A, Tau don't need to be able to see you to shoot. B, Tau are super maneuverable, and C, knights are quite easy to move block on heavy terrain.
They really are. Yeah.
So that is not a good choice for them. We put Dave's Grey Knights into Drakari again because he did well last time. Jack was confident going into Admech. Jamie wanted to have a pop at Custodes for a second time. He didn't really, but we just forced him to with his sisters. And basically they threw their White Scars player under the bus onto me, and I chose light terrain. So these 20 Vanguard vets haven't got any jump-off points or anything, and they're going to have a bad time. Once again, Jack grabbed the win beautifully. Dave was the only game that was going on and on and on.
Yeah.
I think he played a really good game. There was a key moment where Dave made a 7-inch charge near the end, but from the sounds of it, he was basically failing nose saves, and I think his opponent was It was quite funny. Like we were watching, and just like 5 out of 5 up in vulnerables. It's like that sort of stuff happening.
That's one of my favourite. You have that moment in a game, don't you, where you realise you're like, oh yeah, it's one of them. It's just one of them. That's just how it's going at the moment. Everything's just soaking up.
Yeah, I felt bad, but it sounds like they had a really good close game. Dave just pipped it.
Nice.
Jamie played out of his skin and managed to beat the Custodes with his sisters.
That is fantastic. Well done, Jamie.
Right.
That's a big scout.
He was really pleased with his win. It sounds like he did some tricks and stuff. Even trying to he was sneakily telling Jamie here his plan.
While the guy's about to do it. Yeah, the guy was about to charge his Telemon into Jamie's Rhino, and then Jamie would have disembarked the Rhino's contents onto an objective to then steal the objective from it.
Drakari stuff. Yes, Jamie.
But before he'd made the charge of the Telemon, Jamie shouted over and told me what the guy was about to do. I was like, yeah, keep it quiet. I didn't tell him he was about to do it. So, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Poor Jamie.
But that's brilliant.
Obviously, the White Scars just didn't have a game in a million years. It was just... I went first, killed one Relic Contemptor, but just sat in the mid-board and went, come on then. And he ran at me, and he had this Devastator squad of multi-melters, and he'd managed to put a lot of wounds into my Galatus. The highlight being a Galatus had 3 wounds left. He got 3 wounds through with his bolter. I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if I rolled 3 1s here on my save and promptly did roll 3 1s on my nice. 2 up. Thankfully, I rolled a 6 up for no pain. But he decided to put fire he was like, well, this multi-melter is going to fire twice and it's going to kill that Dreadnought and fire the rest into the other Galatus. And I was like, this is risky. And sure enough, neither did anything really. And then my first Galatus exploded and did 3 mortal wounds to my Inquisitor, who was doing Warp Ritual. And then on the second turn, the other Galatus exploded and did the required 2 mortal wounds to my Inquisitor. So my Inquisitor died to only my own explosion.
Oh dear.
And so I only scored 7 on Warp Ritual, which was sad times. But no, it was other than that, everything went very smoothly as you would expect, and we basically got to turn 3 and he had 3 units left. So I couldn't table him because I'd chosen grind them down. So I had to just basically be like, well, I'm going to kill this unit and then I'm going to say, it's your turn. And that's how the game ended. And then that only leaves one of the quickest games in history, Jamie.
Yeah. I was quite surprised when the Imperial Knights player chose heavy terrain. I thought it was always going to be quite easy with my Kroot hounds and devilfish full of breaches to move block him. So first turn, he takes first turn. He moves around to get angles onto my couple of my devilfish. Killed both squads of Kroot hounds, I think. Fails to kill one of my devilfish, leaves it on 6 wounds. The only other things visible are my characters, but they're all bodyguarded. So then first turn, I then move out with everything that's, he's got a sort of 36-inch range on his weapon, so I'm sitting there with broadsides at 60 and long strike at 72, just out and picking the angles. I pop 3 knights, 3 baby knights first turn. Wound a couple others. Sort of hand the table back over to him, saying, "Fill your boots." Screened him out with what was left of my Kroot and my 2 devilfish. He has no lines of sight on anything else, so his big knight pops out, kills my Kroot, and then shoots sort of 6 little baby knights with melters at my devilfish. I think he gets 8 hits through on his knights, and all 8 rolls 1s and 2s, so fails to destroy any of my devilfish. I mean, I'm not sure how much that really affects the game. If he'd have killed a devilfish and then some breaches, they didn't do anything really in the game anyway. But then, in my next turn, I get within 12 inches from my Exemplar of the Montcar, so my airburst frags, although only strength 4, re-rolling all hits from Shadow Stone, all wings.
Yeah, that's nasty.
They drop a knight. My commander drops another knight, broadsides another, hammerhead. So at the end of turn 2, he's just got his big knight left, and says, "Thank you very much, sir. Good game." Very short. I think the game probably totaled about 45 minutes, an hour.
Boom.
And
that's why people play knights, right?
Yeah, quick game, get to the bar quickly.
It is. It's quick, it's snappy, you know what's going to happen one way or the other.
You either win fast or lose fast. That's the joy of knights.
It's either going one way or the other. No,
I was just pleased to get my first win of the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
Off the shoulder.
This can happen in teams where even if things are going relatively well, you can be on a personal struggle.
We had this same discussion on the way in that morning, and Chris is like, "Well, would you want us to go 4-1 and you lose all your matches, or?"
It's an interesting question. The moral dilemma depends. What sort of player are you? Yeah, are you a central defensive midfielder, or are you a Ronaldo, and it's all about your numbers?
No, definitely didn't mind losing. I mean, considering I'd lost through the first game, I was still really enjoyable. I think that's the joys of the team. It's just you're there as a team, and it's just so much better, I think, than singles players.
Yes,
just enjoyed it so much, despite going 0-3 first day.
Because normally when you're at an event, you're talking, you're like, "Oh, how did you get on?" "Oh, yeah," and you're like, "Okay, I'm happy that you're doing well because you're part of like 6++ or whatever." But saying something like, "I'm still competing against you."
Yeah, you're all individuals, aren't you?
Whereas in the team event, you're like, you are very invested. You want to help everyone as best you can because it's important that all those points count.
Yeah, and it's a social game at the end of the day, isn't it? And this allows you to really bring that social side out of it, and to have that camaraderie. So that little bit in the back of your head that's like, "Oh, I might have to play you in a minute," isn't worried.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
very nice.
Your game round 4?
So we played the Sexy Chess Club. The Sexy Chess Club were a nice bunch of lads, and this was another one, I think, where the gap in terms of optimization in some of the armies was quite pronounced. So as an overall team score, we beat them quite hard. But my game with Tom Howells was an absolute one for the ages because it was so fucking stupid. He was running Novok Necrons and a list very much after my own heart that was just covered in Wraiths and Destroyers, but he had 20 flayed ones as well, coming in out of Deep Strike. It was a nice list. Silent King as well. Very melee heavy. And I'd got done quite hard by Necrons at Beachhead, so I was feeling a bit like, I don't know if I like Necrons anymore. I'm a bit of a boogeyman for me. And the game starts off okay, and I'm trying to make sure he doesn't turn one charge me with any of the quick stuff, and I'm sort of fanning about on the 2 flanks, trying to trim Wraiths and trim Destroyers down. And then in his turn 2, he realises I've literally left him the ability to charge my backfield objective from Deep Strike with 20 flayed ones because I've just forgotten that they can just come in the front, like because I've gone around the side, so there's just this big hole.
Yeah.
So 20 flayed ones get on my backfield objective and attack my Court of the Archon, which is one of my to the last. I've taken to the last, and the Court of the Archon only survives again, because of a massive fluke of 5-ups on the Feel No Pain, it's a stupid unit in that sense because it can just roll hot, and it's got so many wounds that it can suddenly soak up these hundreds of Flayed One attacks. So it just about makes it. There's one Lamy in hiding who I have to auto pass, and I'm then really up against it and really in a game, and I'm on the back foot for a lot of it and sort of trying to fight my way through it. And it's on the edge. I think it's on the edge. And round 4, it looks like his round 4. He went first. It looks like, or is it end of 3? He could take it. It's still very much that he could take it. He's had me on the back foot, killed tons of my stuff. My secondary scoring hasn't been great. And then I kill the Silent King, and the Silent King explodes, and he does an 11-inch radius explosion. And this guy, this Tom, who I must say was an absolute legend, like lovely guy to play, picks up our twisted dice we've given him and goes, I'm going to use this for them all. And just rolls 6s for like every unit he has left that are all not like near the Silent King, but they're definitely within 11 of the Silent King. And so characters are dying, whole squads of immortals are dying, lords dying, wraiths dying, 2 wraiths just cop it. And then we get to my characters, it's like 2 mortals, 2 mortals, 2 mortals. So they're all still stood there in the wreckage, fine. And that essentially swung the game. I only just take it. It's incredibly close. I think once you've allowed for the 10 points added for the win in this format, I've only beaten him by 2 points. So it's probably the most undeserved win of my entire life as a 40k player. So thank you, Tom, and thank you to the Silent King for being such a big, stupid grenade. Because that was absolutely hilarious. Like the most damaging, he's 400 points? I think he takes 400 points with him when he goes. So it's just 800 points just gone. Absolutely ludicrous. Very, very funny. But that kind of consolidated our win round 4, so it took us through into round 5. So, for those that aren't going to the big boy finals at the end as they're packing away the tables and telling you to hurry up, this is the final round. So, what were you guys drawn into for your final match?
Well, obviously in round 4 we'd won all of our games. We had like a 260 point differential.
Yeah.
And we also noticed we're very close to you guys.
Yes. We were quite excited, weren't we?
We were at lunch, we were chatting, we're like, it's happening. It's got
to happen, didn't it?
It felt inevitable that Twisted Dice would play against 6++. It was always going to happen.
We'd also started talking about which matchup, what pairings were going
to be. Pairings. We were so adamant.
I was thinking, I'd think about it. I don't think I hadn't spoken to us. I was waiting until this draw was confirmed, but I certainly had a sense of what I would suggest they do. And it would have been a real, been hard on my poor split man-whore loyalty to have both these wonderful teams playing into each other. But it would also have been quite epic, I think.
I think it would have been really good fun.
Yeah, I was well up for it. So it's a shame that didn't transpire.
It did not happen.
We must have been one place out pretty much, right?
What table were you on in your final game?
We were on table 6.
Yeah, we were on table 5. So
we just missed each other.
So we played into team Warclave, who are have their Conclave podcast. They've got a lot of people who are very active on like the old Gram. You've got Quipster with his Custodes and Imperial Fists.
Hashtag Quipster.
They're quite a nice community in London. You got
good podcast actually, the Conclave. I like it. It's good.
Yeah, they got Josh Warhipster on Instagram. He obviously has a very impressive following with his painting. So yeah, they've. This was the team we voted for most, best sporting. It was just a really relaxed, fun game. Across the board, they were just a good bunch of guys. Going in, we felt like we had a reasonable chance looking at the lists. So in terms of pairings, we matched each other very evenly. We both basically set out our Tau and as our defenders and matched Tau into Grey Knights.
We critically won the roll-off this time, didn't we? So we got the light table.
We let Jamie East do the roll-off and he rolled a 2 and they rolled a 1. So we got the Tau on light board into Grey Knights and they got Tau on a medium board into Grey Knights. Okay. So if you're thinking, right, that could be a wash, But if we can get a big win compared to a small loss, you're not expecting Grey Knights to beat Tau, but if you can get a points differential there positively, that puts you in a good place. So then we're like, well, who do we put down for our second defender? And we're all set to put my Custodes down. And then sort of Jack's like, well, the thing is I've got good matchups apart from Crusher, so maybe put me down so then I can just not pick the Crusher. That's fine. My only concern was they had Chaos Demons there, and the Chaos Demons guy had already beaten 2 Custodes players.
Oh, I hate it when you can see that in the past matchups. You're like,
I only know because he'd been telling me. It was Josh.
Okay. My list is specifically designed to beat Custode.
That's literally what it was.
He's in there.
He was in my head. I was like, I don't want to play this Demons this way. I had played into Demons at Beachhead Brawl and I had beaten it, but it was a really close game and I snuck it at the end, just about chewing through everything in time. And the guy had made a couple of mistakes, in my opinion. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. And then obviously they went and put down the Demons as a defender, which meant our Custodes and Sisters were left as the attackers. So therefore, obviously, they're going to put their Demons into the Custodes. I was like, damn it. Right. Okay. So after all that, it was our Tau into their Grey Knights and their Tau into our Grey Knights. My Custodes on the heavy board into Demons, but I didn't want the heavy board, so I just stuck all the extra ruins just off to the side. It was our Sisters into their Crusher Stampede, which was a matchup we had zero idea about how it would go. We just like, Jamie, just move block them. But I don't think he knows what that is, so I don't think that happens.
Move block means charge, right?
And then we had...
never changed, Jamie.
Our Orcs into their Custodes.
Okay.
But their Custodes player Quipster had not won a game so far, nor had their Grey Knights player. So we were like, maybe we can do this. And it felt like, to me, it was probably going to come down to my game. So, Jamie, do you want to talk through your super close game against Grey Knights?
Yeah, so we were hammer and anvil deployment. I took out the 2 central L's, so he had approximately 23 inches, I think, to cross before he could reach me. He's got a few interceptors there that move 12, but he's having to make 12-inch charges just to get to me. Out of line of sight shooting, I plink away a couple of 5-man squads of interceptors first turn. He then thinks, well, if I sit behind here, I'm going to lose. So he throws absolutely everything forward and dies, really.
And that is how that game goes, I think.
He ended up making a couple of charges just because you can't physically kill 12 squads in a turn, but I only killed 8 or 9. So he made a couple of charges into the crisis and one into long strike, but long strike survived. Charge from a Grandmaster, so he falls back. Were
you bodyguarding long strike? Can we just clarify if you were doing that?
Not in close combat, but
no, but you were doing it the rest of the time. You're a bad person. So, okay, moving on. Carry on. No, that's fine.
I'll take the hit for being a bad person. But yeah, he was just blown away. But I think that there's very little he could do. I mean, he'd been well and truly thrown under the bus there on a light board.
Yeah.
There's no way he's getting across 24 inches if he piecemeal throws it to me or not. I've got Kroot, so I can go and sit on his objective from this side, so he can't even raise his banners. So I think he has to come out and just hope that I whiff a turn and then makes a game out of it. But alas, it didn't go that way, and I won 107-47. So
nice. So we're off to a good start there.
That's a solid win. Yep, solid win.
In the other matchup, Dave plays out of his skin and manages to score 70.
That is really very good.
And he's just like 97-70. So all of a sudden we're like, right, okay, we've now got the advantage. Jamie does...
They should make you play these one at a time, shouldn't they? Imagine the tension. Imagine the tension if you
everyone's staring at Chris at the
individual game and everyone sat watching each stage.
That's what always happens with Chris's games because he always takes so long.
Yes, he does.
So Jamie, as we kind of had a hunch might happen, got royally spanked by Crusher.
Yeah, that'll hurt.
I can't even remember what he scored, but it wasn't great.
30-something, I think.
Yeah, and then Jack pulls out the win against the Custodies.
So Jack is 5-0.
So
Jack
finishes 5-0. So I'm playing, and everyone's doing the maths, and they're like, "This is going to be really, really close." Now, I was playing against Josh, War Hipster with his Chaos Demons. He had Be'lakor, he had a Keeper of Secrets, he had Lord of Change. He took to the last on those three. I took Assassinate. He then had 25 Bloodletters, 20 Pinks, Fiends, 9 Screamers. Pretty nice. And then 30 DMnets in 3 10s. It's the objectives where mission world objectives, you got 3 in your end and 3. It's one where you always choose banners, basically. Cover the relic, I think. And I get first turn, and I've got all my sags on one side, and they just blast into the Screamers, because I know the Screamers can be a bit of a nuisance. I leave 1 alive. This is also a mission where you score a point for killing the opponent, so up to 3. He then kind of just moves everything slightly forward. I'm threatening on one flank and defensive on the other. It's then my turn too, and I'm like, right, it's time to kill that Keeper of Secrets. So I start firing in the salvos. I launch a squad of bikes in. I leave it on 3 wounds. That's quite upsetting, really. But it's okay, he'll die next turn.
Yeah.
Now, on the other flank, Be'lakor is chomping up a dreadnought or something, which I've just left hanging about there. I haven't really known how to play it. The big issue in this game was, again, there was a few time issues. And it meant that we weren't going to finish the game in time. But I'm like, right, well, we know that if I can kill any characters, it's an 8-point swing, because it's taking away 5 from his to the last, and it's giving me 3 for Assassinate.
Yes. And
obviously I'm trying to kill as many little units. So in what turns out to be probably the pivotal turn, my Galatus flames into the single Screamer, 9 automatic hits, 3 wounds go through, because I rolled quite a lot of 1s and 2s.
Yeah.
And he makes the 4-up invulnerables. Screamer's still alive. So that's cost me a point. And I'm like, right, okay. This 3-wound Keeper of Secrets. It's -1 to hit. Sure. It's got a 4-up invuln, sure. But, on Custodies, I'll be fine. So first 3 salvo launchers go in. Not a scratch. Next 3 salvo launchers go in. Not a scratch. 3 Sagittarium. Not a scratch. 3 more Sagittarium. Not a scratch. I'm like, right, okay. He's still sitting on 3 wounds. Just as well, I've got the charges lined up. So there's 3 bikers. They launch in, with their interceptor lances. Absolutely glorious. 10 hits out of the 12. 3 wounds. It's just a sea of 1s and 2s.
Is it the same charge phase where you rolled 2 double 1s for charges?
Yes, this was the same charge phase. When you just have those turns, you're like,
yeah, it just happens.
Everything
do be like that.
And he made all his 4-ups. And it's just like, I can't believe this has just happened. And obviously there are other bits that happened in the game, but in terms of point scoring, they don't really affect it. So that's an 8-point swing. We then have to call it. So he wins by about 15, I think. I don't know how the game would have progressed over the next 2 turns. I would have really struggled to deal with Be'lakor, but obviously I would like to think the Keeper would have died. And then the Lord of Change with 3-up invuln, who I just started to work through.
The unkillable check-in. I love that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Nerf him. Give him a points rise.
Oh, that was it.
He needs another one.
Yeah, he needs another point.
You hear me, Lee? Take him up all the way to 500. We want 500.
Because I hadn't been able to charge anything else, so I just put 3 bikes into the chicken, and I got through out of the 12. I got through 10 again. I got through just 12 hits out of 12, and then 10 wounds. It was the opposite of what just happened.
Yeah.
Obviously, he has the 3-up invuln, and he had that thing to bring back wounds. that he'd suffered some thing like that, and it basically meant that he took 6 damage and gained 6 wounds back, or something like that. So after all said and done, I lost by 14-15. And when the score differential came down, now 10 is a draw, we lost by 12. So you can imagine how I felt, considering I was fairly confident that Keeper of Secrets should have died. Because obviously if that Keeper of Secrets dies, it just ends up as a draw.
Yeah. Ouch. Close game. Very close.
I felt pretty rubbish afterwards. It was pretty frustrating. Afterwards, Jamie told me that he hadn't taken Stranglehold, and because he hadn't taken Stranglehold, he therefore chose a decisive action, which can only be maxed at 12, and those 3 points would have got us our draw because he chose the wrong secondary, so it's actually all Jamie's fault.
Losing 3 games over the weekend wasn't enough. It also cost us the result in the last game. I only scored 107. I should have got 110.
Amateur hour.
You let down the team, Jamie, and we will have words. But no. So it was a lovely game. You could see Jamie and his Grey Knights player were having a great time. Everyone was having a great time. I know Josh. I played against Josh many moons ago, and I lost by 1 point then as well. So
maddening.
He's got a hold of me. That was Necron versus Blood Angel, so it's a bit different this time. But no, it was a really enjoyable game. That was us done.
So very, very close to a very, very commendable run, and a very solid run nonetheless, right? Is that 3-2?
So we finished 3-2. We finished in 19th place. If we'd got that draw, we would have finished 11th, we think. But going into that final round and being on table 5, that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's epic,
very exciting. Considering, Jax obviously plays a lot of tournaments and knows his army very well, but for the rest of us, we're all reasonably new in terms of playing different matchups with our lists.
Yeah, I think the whole team psychology takes a lot of practice, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. But how about Twisted? You avoided us.
We avoided you. So I was a bit heartbroken about that because that was going to be really fun. But we were matched into the Sternguard Fat Tits.
Of course.
Who boasted among their ranks Jake Harding and Vanguard Tactics.
Who were also probably quite hungover because we'd been out drinking with them.
They were quite hungover, and they were lovely chaps. So Adam Shepherd-Jones was also there now, I believe. So they were a man down on on the Sunday because Liam Royal had crashed out. I don't know if you played any part in that. Were you out drinking with Liam Royal until 4 in the morning?
I would like to shout out Adam because he rocked up to our table and went, "Come on, you guys are 40k players. You're 6++, right? You should come out drinking." And we're like, "Yeah, right. Well, we're already out." And he's like, "Go on, drink that." Now, Jamie had bought, not this Jamie, other Jamie had bought Dave 2 strawberry daiquiris. High class thing.
Yeah.
And this is basically a frozen cocktail, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Go on, down it." And Jamie's just like, "No, you down it." So Adam goes, "All right." And starts to try to down this drink, and after about 2 seconds is like, "Oh, no.
Brain freeze, is it?
But obviously he has to, he can't back down now. And for the next 1 minute or so, we just have to watch as he keeps trying and then keep having to stop, just in absolute agony. As his whole, obviously, mouth, brain, face just freezing.
That's hilarious.
And he does it, and we're
well
like,
done,
let's
well
go
done,
out.
Adam.
And we go out, and I look around, I'm like, where are they? And there's him, just like, up against the wall, and they're like, "What have you done to him?" And he was like, it was a wonder he wasn't sick. It did kind of ruin him, and I do apologise, but I'm not really sorry. We then went to his other place, and he was telling us all about Beachhead and how we
because he's heavily involved with Beachhead, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but shout out to him for
fantastic.
Strawberry Daiquiri down.
It was nice to see Adam out and about, and we will get down to a Bournemouth event again soon, without a doubt. So as I say, for tragic reasons involving Liam Royal's absence, they were down a player. And if I have one thing I would say about the event is that our B team, Tish Twisted Dad's B team, captained by Stuart McIntyre, who did a fantastic did a fantastic job captaining them in his first ever teams event. They were also a man down on the Saturday, and they were told, "Oh, come to the desk when you get here, and we'll sort it out." And when they got to the desk, they were told the way they were sorting out was just to give 110 buy to whoever they played in place of that player,
So
right?
ridiculous.
And if I have one bit of feedback on the negative side for the teams event, is that's a shitty way of handling that problem. Have a handful of floating players with decent lists that can jump in. If I think that's a good fix. Or if you're not gonna do that, then make sure people know well ahead, so that if there is people missing, they can work hard to at least try and fill those places. So that's the backdrop to this round, because this round was a bit tense and the adrenaline was pumping a little bit. Like, I love Jake. I'd have had a great game playing Jake because he's a nice boy, but didn't match into Jake. And what happened here was that our Sternguard opponents quite used the absence of Leroy quite cleverly, because they put him down as their defender first, which meant that they could then essentially use him to choose two of our lists to essentially just one of our lists to just take out, basically. And so they used him to do that. And I think, Andrew and John, who'd been sort of thinking over possible pairings and stuff, hadn't really factored in that was even something you could do. And was sort of a bit blindsided and confused by this. Now, from where I was standing, that's clearly something you can do. And once it's been done, there's no going back and doing anything about it, because you can't rerun pairings again once people have shown how they're thinking and what their logic is. So we just had to get on with it. But I think there was a mild moment to feel bad. We were chasing the 4-1 and everyone was very excited. They're obviously a player down, so they're frustrated because they're a good team and they want to do well. And so I think that backdrop just put a slight air of like, oh well, come on then, let's absolutely kill the shit out of each other to the background. And I end up getting paired into the tower again, because fuck everyone. And because I've lost valiantly once, they're like, well, you can do it again, and that's all you need to do is just lose well. And so I'm paired into Jay, who was a very smart, very sharp player and had a very, very good Tau list. Tons of crisis and broadsides and long strike being bodyguarded and all those sorts of things. Very, very good list. And so my patience for playing a cagey game didn't exist. So I was like, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna absolutely run fucking screaming at him with everything I've got and try and pin him in and score big on herd and banners in the back whilst I'm doing that, and then gradually lose, because that's what will happen. But I was like, if I come screaming at him with enough stuff, I might create some mistakes and might provoke a few little errors that will let me get some points and rack up some score. And that's exactly what happened, because I charged him with a Raider turn 1, which I don't think he was expecting, but you should know that Blackheart Raiders can do that. Casual 22-inch advance and charge on a Blackheart Raider is very nice with other sails. So I get one, basically, a Raider full of racks just tags his castle in the back.
No,
he's not positioned that badly, but it ties up Shadow Sun and some broadsides and a couple other things. But he's gone first, so he's already like plinked away at my stuff and killed a bunch of racks and killed some of my stuff, and done that thing Tau do now, where they go, look how spooky my artillery shooting is. You're going to have to do something about this, or you're going to die. So you better get going.
Did the Raider not die to Overwatch on the broadside?
That is a good. Oh, no. Come on. I just charged Shadow Sun and I Tokyo drifted into stuff like a sensible player. Yeah. So I did that, and I'd rushed a bunch of stuff up, and I actually forgot Drazar and some Incubi, but this ended up working really well because I looked back. I was like, oh, I was supposed to move them, and I was like, actually, having a Venom on that back objective. Venoms aren't actually great for SMS because it's -1 and the toughness 5. They're a pain to shit. Venom with some guys inside might last longer and help me keep getting my primary. And also Draz waiting and just seeing, because he had a crisis team still up in the air. So the threat of Draz at the back meant that he did stay in his half. So I actually scored pretty well on Herd the Prey. But then we just had this hilarious moment where he just did the stupid thing, and he was like, oh, instead of falling back, I want to shoot all my guns. So instead of falling back from this Raider, I'll shoot my way out of it because I can do that now. But then he compounds that by saying, I'm going to fire this one broadsides railgun at the Raider, and then here's all your shit that I'm going to kill with all this other stuff. And I said, well, that's cool, and I'll lightning fast, and this will be very funny if you miss. and he missed. So all of his shooting's still tied up, and he's got 10 racks in that raider and on one of his backfield. And on the other side, he's killed the absolute living daylights out of me. But enough of my stuff has got through that it's like there is definitely going to be a turn where all the violent people are going to get to run in and do some stabbing and chopping. So he's getting it. I think Tau Jakari is actually an incredibly stressful game because Tau want to shoot them, Jakari want to stab them to death. It's very fraught as you work out which one's going to manage to do that. And so it was quite tense. We were having it got to that kind of, having to have hard lines with each other a little bit and just kind of play a slightly firmer game because it became very clear we were both quite technical and neither of us was going to just be like, I'll just accept whatever in the game. So it was probably my more feisty of games, but it was quite good humoured, and hopefully Jay, you see where I was coming from and know that I was just in it to make you have to work hard basically, and had a very good time doing that. So these racks come falling out. He tries to wrap it with Fire Warriors and Shadow Sun and not kill the Raider, but he's wounded it so badly already that Shadow Sun punches it and it dies, which is really funny. And racks fall out on his objectives and some racks fall back. And I've taken Assassinate, which he was like, oh, really? I was like, well, I'm just going to go after your characters and kill your characters and get some secondary points before I die. Yeah. So I hunted down his Ethereal, hunted down his Commander, hunted down a bunch of stuff and scored quite well. And then by that point, I've just been shot so brutally. Like my stuff I got into places, I shot him off primary, got some points. And then was eventually just folded up. But by the time he got back down the table, I'd scored well on banners and herd and other things. So I was relatively happy with that. And it was a very funny and very fraught game. And I suspect with Jakari and Tau, you want to rush him even worse than that and with even more stuff and even more quick things and just really...
But you can't sit there and hide, can you?
No, well, that's it. It's not going to work. Jakari can't weather that kind of artillery. So you just need to go and make it scary. But our other games went well. The boys all won the other rounds, which meant that with the bye as well, just really compromising it. That it was a heavy win, but that was kind of, it was one of those ones where they were a man down, a pairing down, and they played that as best they could. But it was always
they started 100-0 down, didn't they?
That's it. And so it's just you need to win all your other games and win well to really turn that around. And so they were unfortunate, and I feel for them because that's not how anyone wants to lose.
No.
And so we ended the day 4-1 and finished, I think, 6th overall.
Yeah, fantastic.
Which was solid. Although, as you say, that final round is obviously a bit of a gimme with the swinging points that them being a man down creates. But still solid innings. And John Spence won his Custodes mirror again. So this, as I say, watch out for this infantry heavy Custodes because it seems to get through the bike and dreads lists pretty effectively.
It just obsects, doesn't it? And
bikes just out obsects. Yeah,
everyone's terrified of bikes, but it's like, well, you know what? 12 attacks, transhuman, 6 wounds, and into a Custodes, that's 3.
Yeah,
that's only killing 1 Custodian infantryman.
Yeah,
on average,
it's not good,
and like that's not good value from a 255 point unit. So yeah, as I said, the one mirror match I've played, he had more infantry, and it was definitely important.
Yeah.
Whether it's it affects the other matchups.
Yeah, is it good in the field?
Yeah, it's hard to know. But
no, I don't know either. And obviously, in the context of teams, it's hard to know because I don't think the heavy hitting lists don't really get put into things that will test them. That's kind of how teams work.
Yeah, exactly. If you're ending up with both teams' heaviest hitting lists playing into each other, then
so the lesson is if you're going to a teams event, take the most terrifyingly overpowered thing there is, because then you'll get to play all the nice games against shit armies for the entire weekend.
Don't be the niche list, which is like, because there's that story, isn't there? When America won it, they had a few years ago, they had an all custody bike with hurricane bolters, and then all aggressors with all the shots list, because that would go into the horde. And like every matchup, there wasn't a horde list, so he just got thrown onto the bus in every single thing to take out their opponent's best list. And there's playing that, I think, to an extent.
Yeah. So it was good fun. I mean, we've said lots of positive things about teams. It's clear that it's gone well. I guess for both of you, you're obviously both playing two armies that are kind of the talk of the town at the moment. and I've obviously played into them over the weekend as well, and I played into a bunch of other armies. Where out the back of the teams event, looking ahead to other events we're going into, where do you think the meta's at the moment? What do you think the sort of balance of power and balance of different factions is? What did you get playing Custodes, playing Tau into other different things? Where do you feel things are at?
For myself as Tau, I think it's difficult to gauge when you haven't played so much of the field. Yeah. I think the top guys, like the Art of War guys, you see that have practiced their armies into every other army. I think it's the likes of Tau and Custodes really shine when you know how to play the matchups. But like myself into the Crusher and into the GSC, is that I feel like those are completely different matchups once I learn them. Obviously, this is the first time I've run into GSC, first time I've run them into T-Suns, first time I've run into Crusher with them. So I think even just in the second game, you just learn so much from that initial game. It's just frustrating that obviously in the initial game has to be in a tournament setting. But I think it's clear that, look at the percentages at the moment, that Tau and Custodes are scary. The 70, I think Tau was 70%, 74% if you take the mirrors out. Something needs to be done there, but they're still comfortably beatable. Obviously, especially when the guy piloting them doesn't really know the rules yet. But,
well, that's always the thing when you're actually learning an army, right? And I had the same with Jakari. I was like, "Why aren't I winning all my games?" Because you haven't learned how to play them yet. You've got, you don't just turn up. That's even when an army's strong. That's not how it actually works.
Yeah, Tau are just like, sort of early release AdMech is that, they're going to blow a lot of people off the table, but they've got so much to learn. The command phase is so in depth, especially with the Tau Empire sept. The Tau sept list is just, everyone's got, at least one, maybe two, some things even three buffs that you got to, always stay in range of, always make sure that you're putting the right buffs on the right units, and that just takes reps in. So I think, I learned a lot from the weekend, and although I've changed my list quite substantially now going forwards, that it'll be a learning process again. But
absolutely.
Definitely. They're a fun army to play now, which I think is better. Fun army to play into as well. 8th edition Tau was very dull in the Riptide Wing, and the Shield Drones it's not fun for people to run into. But
this is definitely more fun to play against, without a doubt. I love that there's just a commander out there that's just good at fighting as well. That adds some fun, because there's one guy out there who's going to take you on at some point, and you're gonna get to duel him if you get through the lines, which is good fun. How about you, Chris?
I think it's an interesting one. What I would say is that obviously you can just see from all the results, it's just Tau and Custodes, and it depends on which tournament who turns up as to whether it's Tau or Custodes that wins. I think the difference is that you're hearing stories of Custodes players who haven't played for ages, or are just trying something out and going and just winning a tournament. And the army's strong enough that if you just go along and get a bit of luck and play the simple game of just sticking to holding 3 objectives and smashing face, and not really, and just showing your only 1 or 2 model or units out to the opponent, they just can't deal with it. And it takes a lot of hard work to be played around. So I think that is an issue, that you've got an army that isn't blowing people away necessarily, like with the Alpha Strike, and yet it can still dominate games even with people who aren't that experienced. And combine that with the fact that A, so many people have Custodes armies anyway, and B, they're super easy to pick up. Means that the reality is Custodes aren't going anywhere until they make some quite substantial changes. I think the Tau changes will there's so many different Tau lists out there. I think that's going to be the thing. I think Tau are going to be around a lot longer. Like, you look at all Custodes lists at the moment, and people are starting to try new things, which is great. But probably the 9 bikes, Trajan Shield Captain on bike, some troops and some dreadnoughts is on Emperor's Chosen is probably the best list until people really start to get to grips and have a proper go at experimenting.
The problem with the Custodes is just the lack of data sheets, isn't it? Tower Empire, great insofar as that early Drakari is that the codex is so well written and so well internally balanced that they nerf one thing and we can just sidestep into something else. Whereas I think if Custodies bikes take a big nerf, they're going to struggle to maintain their current win percentage, I think.
And that's it, isn't it? It's going to be a hit to the stratagems.
Which you don't want. You don't want to lose them out of the picture altogether at all.
And that's the problem. Like, it's what is the balancing act? So bikes go up 10 points each, and the stratagems go up to 2 CP. Are they now not functioning? I don't know. I think that's what the playtesters are for, right? But yeah, I think at the end of the day, obviously, we're about to get hit by Eldar and Harlequins. It sounds like Harlequins are pretty beasty. From the stuff I've read and listened to, more people are excited about Harlequins themselves than Craftworld.
I would consider myself more excited about Harlequins than Craftworld.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. It just seemed a lot more fun, and it doesn't seem to be that the Craftworld are going to be as completely dominating as maybe we were kind of expecting. Whether enough people want to go and build
they were essentially that they've been sensibly or cautiously pointed.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
That's the key thing. They've got great rules. They're just not going to have tons and tons of stuff. But we'll see. We'll wait and see.
Into Tau.
They are. So it's So I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? We're very early days with Tau and Custodes. It was clear from the event and the way that the heavy hitters in every team were the Tau and Custodes list, and those were the ones racking up the big wins. That's where they're at, and they're capable of that. It was also clear there's a ton of other powerful armies right now that give each other a very good game as well, though. I think in Crusher and Jakari and new Necrons, there's all sorts out there. Sisters with very high skill cap. I think they're not easy to play, but played definitely well, they're very effective. There's lots and lots out there just below that layer. That at the moment, as you say, that it's damning on the stats and it's damning on the events, because we're seeing that there's a sort of top layer that where perhaps in the best hands these new books have still got too much of an edge at the moment. But actually, there's a lot. Now that we've got lots of new rules, lots of ninth rules and lots of ninth books, there is lots of stuff out there that plays well into each other and gives each other interesting games. And it certainly felt like that at the event.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to see how we all get on. Are you both at the Twisted event, the next Twisted Dice event?
No, I'm not.
Jamie is not.
I'm not anything till is it the Hellstorm one in end of March?
Oh, fantastic!
The RTT.
Yes. Yeah, the RTT. Yeah, brilliant. I think I'll probably take Gene Steelers for that, because that's a one day. I reckon I can suffer through a one day.
Yeah.
I'm not ruling it out. Having played them today, I'm now feeling like, do I just suffer through and take them to Twisted Warp? I don't know. Harlequins are dead sexy.
I'd be taking Harlequins if I was you.
I think I will. I've got to take them before the stats start making me feel like I shouldn't. We'll wait and see. And Chris, what are you going to take? Do you know?
Well, Tom, you know full well that this is up for debate, because currently we are putting a vote on the YouTube channel as to what army I am taking. And I put down 5 options for our lovely viewing public. So I put Custodes 16 bikes, I put Custodes 4 dreadnoughts, I put Custodes randomly generated, Admech, and Lee's Thousand Suns, which I have never used before. Now I'm sure you wonderful listeners can guess how the voting public are going at the moment.
Yeah.
Because after we're on 47 votes, and 49% of you have voted for Lee's Thousand Suns, which I have never used before. So it is looking like I'm taking Thousand Suns to the next event, having never. I've played against Lee's Thousand Suns at every event recently that I've been to. So I know them in as much as I know how the army functions, having played into it. Obviously, it's a completely different kettle of fish when you're trying to work out. I mean, let's face it, I'm not really a psychic phase kind of guy.
You're not a psychic phase kind of guy at all, are you?
Rumour has it, Thousand Suns have play in the psychic phase.
They do psychic powers, yeah.
They do psychic powers. So, I mean, I can't wait for the first game where I manage to forget that for psychic phase.
You're taking Magnus? You're going to take Magnus, right?
No, I'm not. I have built a list.
Okay.
I have built a list. It does not feature Magnus. I don't want to auto lose some games. I've kind of got a list going. I did manage to convince Lee to buy 10 Terminators painted. So it will be a list featuring 20 Terminators.
Nice.
Those 20 Terminators come to 900 points.
They do.
What is that about?
That's insane, isn't it?
But, that is 60 effectively 1-up saves into 1 damage. And if you're on cover, 0-up saves. So that's exciting. And, I have a lot of firepower. I've put I've got, the current list I've got has got summoning points for pinks. Because I'm going down the route of, I've got these 20 Terminators, I've got 10 rubrics, I've got these 3 big blobs, which are quite hard to deal with, and I'm putting down a lot of firepower. Then I'm going to have these pinks with a really annoying 4-up invuln on an objective as well. I'm just going to try and out-attrition you while psychicking and shooting you away. That's the basic idea for the list at the moment. And it'll be fun to try something new. And, it'll go one of 2 ways. I'll be like, this was so boring to play. Or I'll be like, eBay. 1,000 subs.
Yeah, I never want to stop playing these guys. I'll be interested to see how you get on. I think that'll be a learning curve, but they'll be strong. They'll be good. They'll be good fun to play.
Yeah, I think, and I just like to apologise in advance for whoever I play, because I will probably I'll create a cheat sheet and I'll spend all of the week before trying to learn the rules and stuff, so I have some chance. But I'm not going to get a practice game because I'm not seeing Lee until the event. So I'm literally just going to pick up the army, pick up the codex, and say, "Hi, nice to meet you."
How bad is it going to feel for your first opponent if you beat him? You're like, you do realise I've never played this army before in my life.
And I will 100% be leaning into that.
I designed my list specifically to beat yours, but I've never actually used it.
I've never actually played it, but on paper, I feel confident.
Yeah.
So no, it'll be a fun event. We always enjoy the Twisted Dice event.
Oh, they're so good. They're really good events. And so shout out once again to the Twisted Dice team that I played with, and Twisted Dice B team as well, for actually winning one of their games when they were 110 points down as well, which is pretty flipping heroic. And so, it was a good weekend with our teams, all the teams from local area out and about, wasn't it? And so we had a really good time. So if you haven't tried teams, try it. Get a team together, have a go.
Yeah, Coventry,
the next big one, isn't it? And there's going to be more and more of them, I think, in this heavily 40k serving world that we now live. But you can it felt like any level you could play it at.
If you went down to the lower end, they had all fun armies.
There was all kinds of stuff going on, and so whatever
you're the bottom end.
Beautifully painted. Yeah, that's where the nice armies are.
That's where all the pretty ones.
They weren't silver guns. Yeah.
No, however you envisage 40k, it was on display there, and certainly, as you say, the camaraderie and the team ethos of it actually was quite nice, because we form teams in 40k, whether we mean to or not, don't we? So it's nice to actually have those teams mean something in the game. Yeah. Very nice. Right. Well, that's all from us. We've been sort of rolling steadily through event breakdown episodes every time. Maybe we'll have to try and make sure we do something. Get a bit more concept based next time, and then we can do it. If we feel like, if we've done well at Twisted Dice and we want to talk about it, we'll talk about it a different day. See how we get on.
When I've won the entire event of Thousand Suns and broken
1,000 Suns, and Lee, it turns out, was just shit all along.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh dear, fantastic. Right. Okay, well, that's us signing off. I've been told I've had the wonderful Jamie and Chris with me, and we will see you all again soon. Good night.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye. Bye now. Bye-bye.